Welcome. My name is John Slett. I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Laurie Ailes, and we're here to tell you about the opportunities to pursue graduate school in the Department of Medical Biophysics at the University of Toronto. And so we've prepared a few slides for you today, but as you may have realized, there's an opportunity to interact with us through the online system. So by all means, bring your questions forward, and we'd be happy to answer them about what it's like to be a graduate student and what are the steps that you would need to go through in order to join our program. So Medical Biophysics is a multidisciplinary program, and it really brings together a number of different disciplines with the idea that if you were to apply research in biological and physical sciences to address the challenges of medicine. So it's sort of a nutshell, but I think the concept is more than that, and I'll pass it over to my colleague to perhaps address that in more detail.
Sure. So I like to use an example actually of two scientists that were at our institute and in our department back in the 60s when our department was still quite new. So there were two scientists, Ernest McCulloch and James Till. James Till was a physicist and Ernest McCulloch was a biologist. And they were investigating the effects of radiation on bone marrow back in those days. And because those two scientists were working together, they made a great discovery, which was the existence of stem cells. And they really are given the credit for really having laid the foundation and started the whole field of stem cell biology and stem cell research. And that really wouldn't have happened if there hadn't been a physicist working with a biologist to make the discoveries that they made. So this is a perfect example of the types of synergies that are actually fairly common within our department, where we have biologists and physicists working together. And John, I don't know if you maybe have some more examples of that type of thing.
Well, certainly. So I think that's a great example, and certainly our department continues to be very active in stem cells, but I mean there are lots of other similar types of collaborations. I might note some of the work that's being done at Sunnybrook, where they're developing focus ultrasound techniques to use in both for cancer therapy and to treat other conditions. At the Hospital for Sick Children, we have physicists working closely with neuroscientists, obstetricians, other faculty to try and develop new treatments. And so the department really puts an emphasis on bringing different groups of people together to make new discoveries. And and the way that we approach our graduate program reflects that. So for instance, one of the important aspects of the graduate program is that we have a weekly seminar series where we bring together our biology and physics students so that we really learn to talk to each other and to benefit from the synergies of those different groups coming together. So in order to structure our program, we have asked the students to apply to different streams. And so we have at present 3 streams in our program. They're cellular and molecular biology, structural biology, and medical physics and imaging. And depending on the type of background you have, you may prefer one or the other of these. But there's many opportunities to sort of tailor the curriculum so that it matches your interests. And increasingly we have applicants with unique backgrounds, that they may have a strong biology background but want to take the physics courses at their most advanced levels. We also have students who are interested in neuroscience and other disciplines. But it's important to keep in mind that the department has a very strong history in cancer, and perhaps I'll let my colleagues speak to that. We have 50 years of history in that area.
Right. So as I mentioned, Till McCulloch set the ball rolling, but we've had a large number of really amazing scientists in the cancer field over many, many years, including in the areas of imaging as well as the areas of biology. We have probably close to half of our faculty are located in the Princess Margaret Cancer Centre, which is the biggest cancer centre in Canada. And we actually do clinical research, often relating to actual patients, where we participate in clinical trials, or we use tissues that have been, specimens that have been obtained from patients and things like that. So we have a really great interaction also with the clinical side. But cancer isn't all we do. We also have a lot of other disciplines within the department besides cancer. But it's a very big component of the department.
And to maybe give you a sense of the breadth of the department, we've written out a few of the different research themes that our scientists take on. They range from everything from tumor biology to developing new instrumentation. There's a very strong group developing medical imaging technologies, but also cellular work, genetics, bioinformatics.
There's actually now, in recent years, there has been a huge explosion, in fact, of the bioinformatics side of things. So I think there's maybe even a thought of another stream being added to the department in terms of computational biology, which is sort of a new field, a new and rising field, and there's a lot of new faculty who are in this area. But there's also a lot of people doing stem cell biology, as well as mouse models of cancer, development, even looking at development in worms and in fruit flies. It's an extremely diverse department, and there's opportunities for all different kinds of research in the department.
So where does medical biophysics fit into the sort of sphere of research at the University of Toronto? So we have a bit of a schematic of how this works. So a lot of the basic science research that's done by the University of Toronto is done on campus, and of course the St. George campus is located in downtown Toronto. But that campus is immersed in a sort of medical discovery district, which includes many very large research hospitals. And that community of research hospitals has absolutely fantastic resources. They have very large research institutes and state-of-the-art equipment, and of course, access to patient populations. And so it's very possible within the University of Toronto to do translational research that takes you right from basic cellular biology all the way to impact in patients. And so our thinking of how the Department of Medical Biophysics fits into that is that we span these two zones. And in fact, most of our scientists have their labs in these research hospitals. That means that we have access to the state-of-the-art equipment these hospitals have, and also the opportunity to do patient-based research. And so there's really unique opportunities that you would have as a student working in that environment that takes you beyond just the sort of classroom experience of a university.
So, as we already mentioned, we're located in a variety of different locations throughout the city. So there's the Princess Margaret Cancer Centre, which is the new name for what used to be called the Ontario Cancer Institute, in case you're wondering about that. There's also the Sunnybrook Health Sciences Centre, which is over on the east side of the city. The Hospital for Sick Children, the St. George University of Toronto campus, those are all located downtown, close to the Princess Margaret. And then there's also the Toronto Centre for Phenogenomics and the Rotman Institute. So we are spread a little bit around the city, but we do also come together in a number of ways, including at student seminars as well as at our annual retreat, which we'll mention again later.
So just to give you a tour of the city, so the head office for the Department of Medical Biophysics is actually part of the Toronto Medical Discovery Tower. So here up on the 15th floor is where you can find our administrative offices, and then our students are spread through these buildings and many of the other research institutes in the surrounding area. There's also a large group up at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center. So here's another medical biophysics office, and many of our physics faculty work out of the Sunnybrook location, although of course there's physicists at Princess Margaret and at SickKids as well. And so here's a breakdown of how we split up. So I would say about half of our faculty are at the Ontario Cancer Institute, Princess Margaret Hospital, large group at Sunnybrook, and then smaller groups at SickKids, the Rotman Research Institute, which tends to focus on neuroscience, and then some of the other locations around the city.
So we have, this is just to show you what our numbers are like. We have around 250 graduate students at any particular time, and around 125 to 130 faculty. So this is just to show you that it's really a very large department. And within the department, you have so many opportunities because of its size. There's also a lot of things going on within the graduate student community as well, because there's so many of you. There's organized groups, there's social events and things like that, and there's a lot of different things that you can get involved in.
One of the ways that you can enhance your experience as a graduate student is to join one of the collaborative programs. So there are there are disciplines that span many departments within the university, and to try and address that, the university has created these collaborative programs which bring together faculty from a number of different departments that focus on a particular discipline. And you can, if you have that interest in terms of your research studies, you can join one of these programs. Some examples are the collaborative program in neuroscience is a very large program, cardiovascular sciences, there's several others to choose from. And through this, you have the opportunity to interact with students working in similar areas. They also have their own seminar series and some specialized courses that you can take advantage of.
So this is just to give you a little bit of statistics on the types of publications and citations that have come out of the University of Toronto in recent years. And this is just to show you sort of where we stand in amongst our Canadian peers as well as North American peers. And you can see that we actually rank first amongst both Canadian and United States public universities in terms of numbers of publications and citations. And also, even if you include the Ivy League institutes such as Harvard and Stanford, we're still ranking second. So we actually have a really great sort of track record of really producing very high quality research that gets published in high quality journals and gets lots of citations.
The University of Toronto is really a powerhouse in terms of medical research. It's such a large community. There's sort of tremendous opportunities to, when you do your studies here, in terms of the opportunities to collaborate. It's very easy just to walk down the street, find experts in almost any discipline you could think of related to health sciences. And that really helps in terms of moving research forward and your ability to learn and make progress.
So this is just showing you the similar sort of statistics from the Medical Biophysics department within the past 5 years, again in terms of the number of papers that we've published, the number of citations of those papers, and also the amount of funding that we're able to attract from, for example, federal sources such as the Canadian Institutes for Health Research, the Cancer Research Society, NSERC, and things like that. We're really a very successful department in terms of having funding and resources to be able to do the research that we do.
So one of the things that when we conducted a review 5 years of ago of our department, we asked is, where do our students ultimately end up? And, well, they end up in a lot of different places, but some of them are, as you would expect. Certainly our PhD graduates, just sort of within 3 years, are, for the most part, either as postdocs or continuing their education. Many also go on to industry. But even within 3 years, we see that quite a number of them go on to be research faculty. And that's certainly the training that we focus on in our department, is that we really want to give you the skills that would allow you to do independent research. And I think that future employers really value that training. And certainly if we go on and look at a longer time span, graduates from the Department of Medical Biophysics have leadership roles throughout North America and the world in high-power research institutions.
So every year we also have a retreat at Geneva Park. This is a sort of a nice, what would you call it, a resort? A rustic resort located on Lake Couchiching up in Muskoka. And every year we go up there for 2.5 days, and everybody goes, physicists, biologists, all the students are invited, and we have days where we just give talks and we share our science stories, and we all have a really good time, and we have a bonfire on the beach at night and things like that, and it's really great. So this is also, we just had our retreat for this year 2 weeks ago. And this is a really good way for us to bring everybody together and make sure everybody communicates and talks about what they're doing. And I have actually myself gone to this retreat many times and established new collaborations because of conversations that I had with other people at this retreat. So it's a really good part of our department.
I agree. I think the retreat really brings us together, and also it helps you orient yourself as a new student. So we strongly encourage our students to go, at least in the first year and hopefully in subsequent years, because it really sort of establishes what it's like to be a graduate student, and that sort of pursuit of intellectual excellence, and also just the love of fun that makes the department work. So, how do you join? So, you can check out our website, which is shown here. We have brochures. You can call our department office. We also have a open house, which you might like to take advantage of. This would be held on
November 21st.
On November 21st.
Yep.
And so as part of the open house, you would have the opportunity to meet with faculty who are looking to recruit new graduate students. You'd have the opportunity to take tours of some of our labs and also ask any questions that you might have about how the application process works. I guess we could spend a moment and talk a little bit about how to apply. So, I mean, some of the things that you'll need to apply is obviously you need your undergraduate transcript, and we take the grades quite seriously. Perhaps you could comment.
So, you'll send us your transcripts, and the requirements are officially that you need to have an A- average in the final 2 years of your undergraduate degree. There's potentially some opportunity to sort of negotiate that, I think, if you have a unique sort of strength, but that's the basic requirement. You also would be required to request at least 2 reference letters, and we do look at those reference letters, and those are also quite important. And then, of course, we want you to write us a letter explaining why you want to join the department, what your interests are, and what sort of areas you're interested in working with, and that will also play a big part actually in the admissions process.
I agree. Writing a good letter is extremely important. I mean, we're looking for people who are passionate about science, clear on where they want to go in life, and highly motivated. So as much as you can convey that to us and explain to us why you would like to be in medical biophysics, that would certainly help us in our recruitment process. So I see that we have a few minutes here. I was thinking,
some time,
I was thinking that maybe we could talk a little bit about our own interests. I mean, maybe Lori, could you say some of the interesting things you're working on these days?
So I'm a biologist, and my research is focused on the idea of cancer stem cells. So cancers are thought to contain a subpopulation of cells known as stem cells, which are really responsible for driving the growth of those tumors. But the fact that they're a rare population and amongst all the cells that are making up the tumor makes them very difficult to study. So my lab has focused for some years on finding ways to identify those cells and being able to distinguish them from all the other cells in the tumor, and being able to actually isolate them so that then we can delve deeper into their molecular genetics, their biology, and try to understand what's happened to those stem cells to make them sort of become dysregulated and to grow out of control. I also have a focus on the tumor microenvironment, which is when a tumor is growing, it's not just a homogeneous bag of cancer cells. There's a lot of other cells that are recruited into those tumors, which are actually normal cells, but they are drawn into the tumors, and they provide a sort of environment that nurtures and helps those tumors to grow. So we call those cells the tumor microenvironment, and they consist of a number of different cell types. And so I also have developed ways to be able to isolate all of these different cell populations from the tumors, to be able to characterize them and try to understand how they're interacting with each other. And hopefully that will provide us with new ways to try to prevent tumors from growing. I work a lot with patient tumor tissues, so a patient will have surgery. I focus on head and neck cancer, ovarian cancer, and kidney cancer. We get those tissues from the clinic after a patient has surgery, and when we take those tissues and we basically separate them into all their different component types, and then we do genetic profiling of those. So it's really kind of fun, although difficult.
No, it sounds great.
Yeah.
Where do I sign up? Are you looking for physicists too?
Well, so actually one of the assays we use is tumor growth in mice.
Nice.
And right now we have a problem with the kidney cancers, because when we try to grow, the way we tell if a cell is a stem cell is by its ability to initiate a tumor in a mouse. But we have to put those cells into the kidney, and so it's very hard to monitor. Once you've put those cells in and the mouse is in its cage and he's eating and he's running around, how do you monitor whether that tumor is growing or not? because you can't see it. It's in his kidney. So now we're developing ways actually to modify those cells to make them fluorescent or to make them express a fluorescent molecule. So then we can go to the physicists and ask them to image those mice for us, and then we can find out how those cells are growing, how fast they're growing, are they spreading to other parts of the body, and things like that, using imaging techniques. And so,
oh, that sounds fantastic. Yeah, I mean, certainly there's lots of opportunities to approach that, both through bioluminescence, fluorescent system.
Right.
You might actually even be interested in MRI as a technology
Possibly.
for that application.
How about you, John? What are you working on?
Well, actually, I've kind of a number of things on the go. So most of the work in my lab is on sort of technology development related to imaging. And an area that I've sort of got into in the past few years has been applications for obstetrics, which really wasn't where I started, but it's proven to be very fruitful. So we've been using imaging technologies to try and detect placental dysfunction, which is one of the major sort of causes of stillbirth or babies that are grown with very low birth weights. And through better sort of diagnostic technologies, we hope that we can sort of help obstetricians make decisions about when they need to deliver a baby early and when it's safe for them to sort of continue to term. And in that context, we've been working on sort of better ultrasound techniques, so you can measure the sort of blood flow physiology of the fetus. It's also possible now to measure oxygen in fetuses. So, I mean, one of the things that impairs their growth is not enough oxygen to the organs, and in particular the brain. And so using magnetic resonance imaging, you can actually measure oxygen transport. And actually a colleague of mine at the Hospital for Sick Children, Chris McGowan, has been really a leader in that area and has been developing technology to measure oxygen transport in the fetus. And there's a lot of interesting sort of engineering and physics challenges that go into that, but I think cool. It will really make a big difference in these areas.
Great. So maybe we should open up the chat room and see if there's anybody who has any questions about how to join the department or about life in the department. Oh, there's one other thing, actually, which we forgot to mention.
Oh.
In the biology stream, we have something called a rotations program.
Oh, that is important.
And we didn't mention that. So what this means is that you get admitted to the department, but you haven't yet selected a supervisor. And when you enter in September, you go into a rotations program. So you rotate through 3 labs, 5 weeks in each lab. So basically what you'll do is you'll select 3 supervisors, and those supervisors will also look at your CV, and then they'll try to match you up so that you have 3 labs to rotate through. And then at the end of those 3 rotations, then you decide who your supervisor will be. And so also if you have any questions about that particular thing, then we can open that up also to the chat room.
Oh, that's an excellent point. Actually, this topic of rotations has been, so with having the 2 streams, we haven't had rotations in the past in physics, but
right.
We actually had a faculty meeting this week. We decided that we were going to give it a try.
Oh,
so
great.
we actually will have
really
rotation.
Good.
So
yeah.
As a physics student, you would also have this opportunity to try out different labs and perhaps get a better sense of whose research.
And
would
I think
be
it's a
right for
really
you.
important thing, because I know that some students are thinking, well, I don't want to do that. I just want to jump right in and get started right away. But I think it's actually the lab that you choose to do your degree in is one of the most important decisions that you'll make. And it's very important that you're in a lab where you like what you're doing, you're excited by what you're doing, and also that you have a good fit with the supervisor. Different supervisors have different styles, and some people might prefer one style over another. And so it's really a great way for both the supervisor and the student to find a good match and to find a way to have the best possible situation to be productive and to get your work done and get your PhD in a timely way. So it may seem like not a great idea from the student's perspective going in, but let's face it, a PhD is generally 5 years, and so 3 months out of that whole 5-year process is not very much time, and it's a huge benefit to you in the long run. So
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. Finding the right supervisor is more important than almost any
Absolutely.
other choice you make.
Absolutely.
So I actually see we have a question on our...
Okay, so what kind of program has rotation program? Is it available to all Department of Biology? I think it's a department-specific thing. I know some of the other departments that do biological sciences do have rotation programs. I think medical genetics does, but I'm not aware of what the other departments actually are doing. So I think that's something that you would have to go and look at each individual department and see what they say. They probably have websites that would explain that. Does that?
But so certainly within our department, the biology students all rotate, and the way things are going, I think the physics students will.
Will too, and it's mandatory. You don't, unless you already have a master's degree. If you're coming into direct entry PhD, then you can bypass the rotations. But if you're coming in from undergraduate, then it's mandatory to do the rotations.
Okay. So we have another question. So what courses are you looking for an undergraduate transcript? Well, I guess it depends what stream you're thinking to go into, and even what research interests you have. But I mean, certainly in the physics stream, we look for students that have a solid foundation in math, that would have physics background, engineering background, computer science background. I guess as a rule, we tend to like transcripts where the students have taken the sort of core subjects that are rather than courses which are sort of overviews of very broad domains. That we want them to have a very sort of strong foundation in core material. It doesn't have to be across every discipline, but you have to have strength somewhere, and that's certainly what we look at. Perhaps you could comment on that.
It's very similar for the biology side. I think if you've got an undergraduate degree in any of the biological sciences that covers basic molecular biology, physiology, biochemistry, and things like that, the really core subjects that would be related to doing biomedical research, but there's no real sort of hard, fast rules. I think that, if you have a science background, you're potentially suitable for this department, and there's no like rules about specific courses, I don't think.
No, and certainly we're taking more and more diverse backgrounds.
We even now have computer sciences people coming in for the bioinformatics type of research, and so it's really very diverse, and that applies to also the students that we accept also being very diverse.
That's true.
Yeah. Are there any other questions that anybody has? No? Okay. Do we want to see if can we think of anything that might have come up? Questions students might have?
I mean, there's certainly lots of interesting science in the department we could talk about.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is there's so much. It's hard to know where to begin.
Yeah. So I mean, it really spans the gamut. I mean, in the physics side, there are people doing MRI development for cardiac applications, for neuroscience applications, therapeutic applications. Oh, I see. We actually have.
Are there any scholarships available for the program, and when is a good time to apply? So yes, there are scholarships available. There's a variety of different things you can apply for. There are federal level scholarships. There's the Canadian Institutes of Health Research has graduate student scholarships for people on the biology side, and the NSERC has scholarships, I think, for people on the physics side.
That's true.
We also have the Ontario Graduate Scholarship Program, and you would apply for these once you're accepted to the department. So basically, when you come in September, the department is actually very good at communicating all of these potential opportunities to you and guiding you through the application process.
I might contradict you on that point. So it's absolutely true that we would encourage you to apply.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking of applying, I would also encourage you to apply now.
There's
certainly no harm, because if you could have a CHR or an NSERC scholarship, on day one when you start your program, it's certainly a big advantage in terms of your CV and the like.
Okay. I didn't know you could apply before having a project to write about.
Well, so one way you can get around that is if you contact a supervisor and say, I'm looking to write a scholarship, and I need some ideas on what I could write about, and so they don't. When you apply for these applications, they don't hold you to do what you say in the scholarship. They mostly want to hear that you can sort of collect your thoughts and give a compelling application. So my thinking on scholarships is there's no time like the present to apply. So.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No. So we were talking about the types of research. You were talking about the
sure,
physics.
yeah. So, I mean, there's lots of different aspects to physics. So, I mean, another area is functional MRI, so techniques to try and sort of learn the association between brain activity and different sort of tasks, or even things in the resting state. There's sort of advanced methods to visualize cardiac function, to measure blood flow. There are and ultrasound technologies being developed. I mean, actually a real success story of our department is the development of high-frequency ultrasound systems, which are used for essentially for microscopic applications, and this has led to a spin-off company called Visual Sonics, which has since been integrated into other larger medical groups. But there's certainly been a strong emphasis in our department on commercializing new technologies, creating spin-off companies, and that's certainly been an avenue for our graduates that very often after they complete their program, they have the opportunity to join either small startup companies or larger technology companies as a way to sort of continue the research that they've done and to make it into a commercial product.
Yep. So on the biology side, there's also a huge variety of things going on. The things that come to my mind as being very exciting are there's an awful lot going on in the realm of bioinformatics and genomics. So given that we are affiliated with the hospitals, there's a lot of work going on in genomic profiling of patients, trying to understand genetic predispositions to cancers or to identify the genetic abnormalities that are leading to their cancers that then allow us to sort of tailor therapies towards individual patients' cancers. That's a really big part of what's going on right now. We also have people doing, for example, embryonic stem cell research. Gordon Keller is a world-class famous scientist working on regenerative medicine applications of embryonic stem cells, so trying to develop stem cell therapies to treat diseases like diabetes or neurodegeneration or even cartilage degeneration and things like that. And it's really very exciting things that he's doing. We also have a lot of people working on mouse models of cancer. For example, Romacoca works on mouse models of breast cancer and mouse models of bone cancer, doing a lot of genetic type manipulations in those mice. We have Tak Mac's lab, who is a pioneer in, transgenic mouse technologies, and he has an enormous amount of amazing things going on in terms of understanding mechanisms of cancer. We also have a whole new area in the realm of immunotherapy for cancer. So people trying to understand how the immune system responds to cancer, and is there a way that we can manipulate the immune system to actually go ahead and then kill the cancer instead of trying to kill the cancer directly. And this is actually a very promising area of research. And I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. There's a huge number of things happening, and it's really exciting. And I'm just talking about the Princess Margaret, where I work. We also have all the things going on at Sick Kids, people working on pediatric cancers and other diseases of children, genetic diseases, and things like that. So it's really a ton of things happening. I think we have another question here.
Sure.
So does the application process focus more on marks or lab experience? I would say I think it's really an independent thing. Each student is evaluated based on their strengths and their weaknesses. Marks are important, but I wouldn't say that I would necessarily, if I was evaluating a CV, I would not necessarily take a straight A student over a student who maybe has maybe a few B's thrown in there, but they have some lab experience and they have a letter which shows that they're really excited and motivated and interested in my area of research. So marks are important, but it's not the only thing that's important. Lab experience, definitely, it's a good thing to have, in my opinion, but it's not essential. You'll start in the lab pretty much from day one, and as long as you can learn, that's the most important thing, and you can learn how to do the lab techniques. A lot of scientists, I think, would say it's a benefit to have lab experience, but it's not an absolute requirement.
I would agree. I think that having a strong letter, and not one just sort of has a bunch of flowery statements, but has really sort of concrete examples of things that you were able to do and what you've accomplished in terms of if you had a summer position or something like that, can really help an application.
Right.
So it looks like we're running to the end of our time.
Yeah, I think so.
So perhaps that would be a good place for us to wrap up. So, well, thank you for listening. I hope that it's informative. And
Yeah.
certainly, if you have any questions, by all means, contact us at the department or check out our website, or please hopefully come for our open house. So, thank you.
Thanks.